Captain J-Ho walked through the metal halls of the spaceship New Dawn like he had done every day for 3 years. But today something felt different in the air around him. The ship hummed with its usual sounds of machines working and air moving through vents, but his mind was not on those familiar noises. Instead, his thoughts kept going back to one person, on his crew. Sora worked in the medical bay as always. Her hands moved with practiced skill as she checked the health scanners and organized medicine bottles. She wore the same white medical mask that covered half her face, just like every single day since she had joined his crew. J-Ho stopped at the doorway and watched her work, wondering about the same question that had been bothering him for months. The mask was not just any ordinary mask. It looked special, somehow made from materials that seemed to glow slightly in the artificial lights of the ship. Sora never took it off, not even during meals when she would carefully lift it just enough to eat small bites of food. She never removed it during sleep periods when most crew members relaxed in their quarters. J-Ho had even seen her wearing it during emergency drills when everyone else was focused only on survival wands. Years was a long time to serve with someone. 3 years of traveling through space together, fighting alien creatures and exploring new worlds. 3 years of trusting each other with their lives during dangerous missions. Yet J-Ho realized he had never seen Sora's complete face. He knew her dark brown eyes that sparkled when she laughed at his jokes. He knew the way she tilted her head when thinking about difficult medical problems. He knew her gentle voice that could calm frightened crew members during medical emergencies. But he had never seen her smile her nose or the lower half of her face that remained hidden behind white material. The question burned inside him like hot metal. Every time he looked at her, he wondered what she was hiding. Was she hurt somehow? Did she have scars from some terrible accident before joining his crew? Was she sick with something that made her face different? Maybe she was just shy about her appearance. Some people felt uncomfortable showing their faces to others. J-Ho tried to convince himself it was probably something simple and normal, but deep down he knew it was not normal. The way Sora touched the mask sometimes, when she thought no one was looking, suggested it meant something important to her. The way she turned her head away when eating suggested she was afraid someone might see what was underneath. The way she always volunteered for night shifts when fewer people were awake suggested she preferred darkness and privacy during their last mission to the mining colony on Titan 7. J-Ho had watched Sora work miracles with injured miners. Her healing abilities seemed almost supernatural. She could look at wounded people and know exactly what was wrong with them even before running medical scans. She could mix medicines that worked faster and better than anything in their standard medical database. She had saved lives that other doctors said were hopeless cases. The miners had called her an angel of mercy, they said. She had magic in her hands that could bring people back from the edge of death. J-Ho had felt proud to have her on his crew, but also curious about where she had learned such amazing medical skills. Her official records showed she had graduated from Seoul Medical Academy with excellent grades, but many people graduated from medical school, and none of them could do what Sora could do. That evening, J-Ho found Sora in the observation deck looking out at the stars through the large, transparent window. The deck was quiet and peaceful with soft lights that did not hurt the eyes. She held a cup of synthetic coffee in her hands and seemed lost in thought about something far away. J-Ho got his own cup of coffee from the machine and sat down. In the chair next to hers, they sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the stars move slowly past their window. Space looked beautiful and dangerous at the same time, with bright points of light scattered across endless darkness. Finally, J-Ho could not hold back his curiosity any longer. The question had been building up inside him for too long, and he needed to know the answer. He turned to look at Sora and saw her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. "Why do you always wear that mask?" he asked quietly. The words seemed to hang in the air between them like something heavy and important. Sora did not answer right away. Instead, she continued looking out at the stars, and Jeho thought maybe she had not heard him. But then he saw her shoulders tense up and her grip tighten around her coffee cup. He was about to repeat the question when Sora finally turned to look at him. Her dark eyes met his, and for a moment he thought he saw something that looked like fear or sadness. He had never seen that expression on her face before. She was usually confident and calm even during medical emergencies. Sora was quiet for a long time, and Jeho began to think she would not answer his question at all. Maybe it was too personal. Maybe he had crossed a line that friends and crew members should not cross. He was about to apologize when she spoke, "Because you would stop protecting me," she whispered. Her voice was so soft that Jeho almost missed the words. They came through her, masks sounding strange and distant, like an echo from far away. The meaning of what she said hit him harder than any alien weapon ever had. What did she mean by that? Why would he stop protecting her? He was the captain and she was his crew member. It was his job and his choice to protect everyone under his command. Nothing could change that. Nothing she could show him would make him abandon his duty to keep her safe. But the certainty in her voice made him pause. She sounded like she absolutely believed what she was saying. She sounded like she had thought about this question many times before and had come to a conclusion that scared her. Jeho wanted to argue with her. He wanted to tell her she was wrong about him. But something in her eyes stopped him. Instead of speaking, Jeho reached across the small table between their chairs and gently touched Sora's hand. Her medical gloves felt strange under his fingers, not quite like normal fabric, but he tried not to think about that. "Right now, I would never stop protecting you," he said firmly. "You are part of my crew. You are my friend. Nothing you could show me would change that." Sora looked down at their joined hands and shook her head slowly. "You do not understand," she said. "You do not know what I am hiding." That night, Jeho lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Sora's words. What could she possibly be hiding that would make him stop protecting her? What secret was so terrible that it would change everything between them? He tried to imagine different possibilities, but none of them seemed bad enough to make him abandon a crew member. The next morning brought new problems that pushed his questions to the background. The ship's communication system picked up a distress signal from a human colony on Kepler 442c. The message was broken and hard to understand, but they could hear screaming and the sound of weapons firing. The colony called New Sol was under attack and needed immediate help. Jeho gathered his rescue team, including Sora, who insisted on coming along to help injured colonists. As they prepared their equipment and weapons, Jeho caught sight of Sora's reflection in a polished metal surface. For just a moment, he thought he saw something impossible beneath her mask, something that made his breath catch in his throat. But when he looked directly at her, she appeared normal again. Just Sora in her medical uniform and white mask, ready to help save lives on another dangerous mission. The question of what she was hiding would have to wait until they completed their rescue mission and brought everyone home safely. The shuttle landed on Kepler 442c with a soft thump that vibrated through the metal floor. Captain Jeho checked his weapon one more time while his team prepared to leave the safety of their small spacecraft. Through the window, he could see the colony of New Sol spread out before them, but something was very wrong with what he was looking at. The buildings stood in perfect rows, just like they were supposed to, but they looked damaged and burned. Many walls were black from fire, and some rooftops had holes blown through them by powerful weapons. Smoke rose from several locations, creating gray clouds that drifted across the orange-colored sky of the alien world. But the strangest thing was how quiet everything seemed. No people were running around. No voices calling for help. No sounds of machinery or vehicles that should be working in a busy colony. Even the distress signal that had brought them here had stopped transmitting an hour before they landed. The silence felt heavy and wrong, like the whole place was holding its breath. Sora stood near the shuttle door with her medical bag slung over her shoulder and her scanner device ready to check for injured people. She looked calm and prepared like always, but Jeho noticed. She kept touching her mask with one gloved hand like she was making sure it was still in place properly. Taemin, the weapons expert of their team, was checking his plasma rifle and looking nervous. He had fought in many battles during his military career, but even he seemed uncomfortable with how quiet the colony was. Young-ho, their communications specialist, was trying to contact the colonists on different radio frequencies, but getting only static in response. Everyone stay together, Jeho ordered as he opened the shuttle door. The air outside smelled strange, like metal, and something sweet that he could not identify. We go building by building and look for survivors. Sora, you scan everyone we find. But be careful. We do not know what. Attack this place. The team stepped out onto the street and immediately noticed something else that was wrong. The bodies of colonists lay scattered around the area, but they did not look like people who had died in a normal battle. Their skin had a strange pale color, and their faces looked peaceful, like they were just sleeping. Instead of wounds or blood, the bodies seemed perfectly preserved. Sora knelt beside the first person they found and held her medical scanner over the still form. The device beeped softly as it analyzed what it was detecting. After a few seconds, Sora looked up at Jeho with confusion in her eyes. "This person is not dead," she said in her quiet voice. "They are in some kind of suspended state, like they are sleeping very deeply, but their body functions have almost stopped." "That makes no sense," Taemin replied. "How can someone be not dead but also not alive?" Jeho had the same question, but before he could ask it, Sora had moved to the next body and then the next. 1. Each time her scanner gave the same reading. The colonists were not dead, but they were not exactly alive either. They were trapped somewhere in between. As they walked deeper into the colony, they found more and more people in the same condition. Some were lying in the streets where they had fallen. Others were inside buildings, sitting at tables, or lying in beds like they had just decided to take a nap. All of them had the same peaceful expression and the same strange pale color to their skin. "This is impossible," Young-ho whispered. "No known technology can do this to living people. You would need massive medical equipment and perfect conditions to put someone in suspended animation like this." But Sora was already walking toward the center of the colony, where something new had appeared since the colony was built. A huge crystal structure grew from the ground like a giant tree made of clear blue-green stone. It was taller than any of the colony buildings and pulsed with light from inside, like it had its own heartbeat. The crystal was beautiful but also frightening to look at. The light coming from inside seemed to move in patterns that hurt Jeho's eyes when he tried to follow them. The structure made a low humming sound that he could feel in his chest and bones, like the vibration from a massive engine. As they got closer to the crystal, Jeho began to feel strange. His thoughts seemed to move slower, and his arms and legs felt heavier with each step. The air around the crystal seemed thicker, like trying to walk through water instead of normal atmosphere. "Everyone fall back," he ordered, but his voice sounded distant to his own ears. "Something about this crystal is affecting us." Sora did not step back. Instead, she continued walking toward the crystal structure, like she was drawn to it by some invisible force. The light from inside the crystal grew brighter as she approached, and suddenly the air filled with a sound like breaking glass. Creatures began to emerge from the crystal structure, but they were not like any life forms Jeho had ever seen before. These beings were made of living shadow that moved and flowed like black water. Their bodies had no fixed shape, but constantly changed from one form to another. The only solid things about them were their eyes, which glowed like burning coals in the darkness of their faces. The shadow creatures moved with impossible grace, flowing across the ground without making any sound. They seemed to be studying the humans with intelligence and hunger. Their burning eyes focused on each team member like predators choosing which prey to attack first. "Hostile contacts!" Taemin shouted as he raised his plasma rifle and began firing. The bright energy bolts passed through the shadow creatures without causing any damage at all. The beings did not even seem to notice they were being shot at. They continued their slow advance toward the humans. Young-ho tried his rifle with the same result. The energy weapons that could destroy thick metal armor had no effect on creatures made of living shadow. Jae-ho drew his own weapon, but he could already see it would be useless against enemies that had no solid bodies to damage. One of the shadow creatures reached Taemin and touched him with what might have been a hand. The moment of contact caused Taemin's movements to become slow and jerky, like he was fighting against invisible chains. His face took on the same peaceful expression as the colonists', and his skin began to turn the same pale color. The creature was doing to Taemin what had been done to all the people in the colony. It was stealing his life force somehow and putting him into the same suspended state that trapped everyone else. Jae-ho watched in horror as his team member became slower and slower until he stood completely still, like a statue more shadow. Creatures emerged from the crystal and began moving toward the remaining humans. Young-ho backed away while still firing uselessly. At the advancing beings, Jae-ho grabbed So-Ra's arm to pull her away from danger, but she refused to move instead. So-Ra did something that changed everything. She raised her hand toward the approaching shadow creatures, and light erupted from her fingers. Not the harsh white light of their weapons, but something warm and golden that reminded Jae-ho of sunshine on a spring morning. The shadow creatures stopped moving forward when they saw So-Ra's light. They made sounds like wind whistling through empty spaces and began to back away from her. The golden light seemed to hurt them or frighten them in a way that plasma weapons could not. But in the glow of So-Ra's power, something else became visible. Her medical mask had become transparent, like clear glass, and Jae-ho could see what lay beneath it for the first time. What he saw made his blood feel like ice water in his veins. So-Ra's lower face was not human where her mouth and nose should have been. There was something completely different. Delicate scales covered her skin and caught the golden light like tiny mirrors. Her teeth were visible through lips that were shaped wrong for a human mouth, too wide, and hiding points that were too sharp. When So-Ra breathed, the air around her mouth shimmered, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Wherever her breath touched the shadow creatures, they began to dissolve like smoke being blown away by wind. "Now you know," she said, and her voice carried sounds that no human throat could make. There were musical notes hidden in her words that made Jae-ho's ears ring. "I am not what you thought I was." The truth crashed into Jae-ho's mind like a meteor hitting a planet. So-Ra was not human. She had never been human. She was something else entirely. Something that could breathe light and dissolve shadow creatures with her very essence. The mask had not been hiding scars or shyness. It had been hiding her true nature from people who would fear and hate her for being different. But instead of fear, Jae-ho felt something else rising in his chest. Wonder at what she could do. Admiration for how she had hidden among humans for so long. And beneath everything else, the same protective feeling that had made him want to keep her safe for 3 years. "Are still my crew," he said firmly. "You are still under my protection." So-Ra's strange eyes widened behind her now useless mask. "You do not understand my people. We are the enemy in your stories. We are what your kind has always feared most around them. More shadow creatures were emerging from the crystal, but Sora's presence was keeping them away from the humans. Jeho realized that she had been protecting them all along, not the other way around. But he also understood that bigger revelations were coming, and the truth about Sora was going to change everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. The golden light continued to pour from Sora's hands like liquid sunshine, and the shadow creatures retreated further into the crystal structure. Their burning eyes never left her face, but they seemed unable to approach while her power was active. Jeho stood frozen in amazement, watching his crew member do impossible things, while her true face remained visible through the transparent mask. Sora turned to look at him, and her expression was full of sadness and fear. She had kept her secret for 3 years, but now there was no way to hide what she really was. The light from her hands reflected off the scales on her face, making them sparkle like jewels. But Jeho could see that she expected him to be horrified by what he was seeing. "No, you have questions," she said, and her voice carried those strange musical notes that seemed to come from somewhere other than her throat. "But first we must deal with these creatures. They are more dangerous than you understand." "What are they?" Jeho asked while keeping his weapon ready, even though he knew it was useless against beings made of shadow. "They are called shadow feeders," Sora explained. The golden light from her hands grew brighter as more creatures tried to emerge from the crystal. "They feed on life energy and store it in crystal structures, like this one. The people in your colony are not dead, but their life force has been drained and stored." Young Ho, who had been standing shocked and silent, finally found his voice. "How do you know so much about them? And how can you do that with your hands?" Sora was quiet for a long moment while she concentrated on holding back the shadow creatures. Finally she spoke, and her words changed everything. Jeho thought he knew about the galaxy, because my people have been fighting them for thousands of years. She said, "We are called the Yon Saeng, which means life-bringers in the old language. We were the first species to travel between stars, and we have been protecting younger races, like humans, from threats like this." Jeho felt like the ground was moving under his feet. "You are an alien?" Sora nodded slowly. "Yes, I am not human. I never was human. My people look similar enough to yours that we can live among you with some disguise, but we are very different in important ways." The shadow creatures made another attempt to advance, but Sora's light pushed them back again. She was clearly getting tired from maintaining her power for so long. Sweat was running down her face and her breathing was becoming harder. "My people discovered long ago that some species become jealous of abilities they cannot have." Sora continued. "They see our power to heal and bring life, and they want to take it for themselves. These shadow creatures were once a proud race called the Vorthak, but they tried to steal our life energy and turn themselves into these things instead. That does not make sense." Young Ho said, "If your people are so powerful, why do you hide among humans? Why not reveal yourselves and help us openly?" "Because we tried that before," Sora replied, and her voice was filled with old pain. "We revealed ourselves to several younger species and tried to help them. We healed their sick, made their worlds more fertile, taught them about technology and medicine. But each time the same thing happened, they became dependent on us, then resentful, then afraid." She paused to push back another wave of shadow creatures before continuing. "Some thought we were trying to control them. Others believed we wanted to replace them as the dominant species in their part of space wars started between our peoples. Wars that destroyed entire star systems." Jeho was beginning to understand. "So you went into hiding to prevent more wars?" "Yes, my people scattered across the galaxy. We took forms similar to younger races and lived among them in secret. We still help, but we do it quietly, so no one knows what we really are. We heal people who are dying, but we make it look like natural recovery. We stop disasters, but we make it seem like coincidence or luck." The crystal behind them pulsed with brighter light and more shadow creatures poured out. Sora stumbled and her golden light flickered like a candle in the wind. She was reaching the limits of her strength. "I cannot hold them much longer," she gasped. "You need to get back to the shuttle and call for help from your ship," but Jeho stepped closer instead of running away. "What do you need me to do?" Sora looked at him with surprise. "You should be afraid of me. You should be running away." Most humans cannot handle learning that aliens have been living among them in secret. Your stories always say that first contact with aliens will be the most important moment in human history. But you are not acting like this is important, because it is not the first time, Jeho said calmly. "I have suspected for months that you were different. Your medical abilities are too good. Your knowledge is too vast. You never get sick. You never seem tired after long shifts, and you can see in the dark better than anyone else on the crew." Sora stared at him in shock. "You knew I suspected," Jeho corrected, "but I did not care. You saved my life and the lives of my crew many times. Whether you are human or alien does not change the fact that you are a good person who helps others." The shadow creatures sensed Sora's weakening power and began to advance again. This time they moved faster and with more confidence, their burning eyes focused on the humans with hunger that promised terrible things. But Sora straightened up and her light grew brighter than before. "If you truly mean what you say," she told Jeho, "then you need to understand what I really am when I stop holding back my power. When I show you my true form, you may change your mind about protecting me." The creatures were almost close enough to touch them now. Taemin stood frozen like a statue, and his pale skin was beginning to look translucent, like glass Young-ho had backed against a building wall and was still firing uselessly at the advancing shadows. "What are you talking about?" Jeho asked. Sora closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "When my people fight, we become something beyond what you think of as alien. We transform into beings of pure life energy. We become large and strange and powerful. Most humans who see us in our true forms cannot handle it. Their minds break from trying to understand what they are looking at." The shadow creatures were only a few steps away now, and Jeho could feel cold radiating from their forms like they were made of ice instead of darkness. "Then do not hold back," he said. "Show me what you really are." "Are you certain?" Sora asked. "Because once you see me like this, there will be no going back to pretending I am just a human with medical skills." Jeho looked at the approaching creatures, then back at Sora. "I have been protecting you for 3 years without knowing what you were," he said. "I can protect you for the rest of my life knowing exactly what you are." Sora smiled, and for the first time he could see her real smile, with teeth that were sharp as diamonds, but somehow not frightening when they were part of her expression of happiness. "Then stand back," she said, "and prepare to see something wonderful." Sora began to glow brighter and brighter until Jeho had to squint to look at her. The light was not harsh, like their weapon fire, but warm and alive, like looking at a small sun. The shadow creatures stopped, advancing, and began to make sounds like screaming wind. Something was happening to Sora's body. She was growing taller, and her proportions were changing in ways that should have been impossible. Her arms became longer and more graceful. Her fingers stretched into elegant shapes that could never be mistaken for human. But the most amazing change was when wings began to unfold from her back. They were not like bird wings or bat wings, but something made of pure light that cast rainbow patterns on everything around them. The wings spread wide and beautiful, filling the air with colors that had no names. Sora's face was changing too. The scales that had been hidden under her mask now covered her cheeks and forehead. They were not ugly or frightening, but beautiful, like precious stones that caught and reflected light in amazing ways. Her eyes grew larger and more expressive, and they glowed with the same golden light as her wings. When the transformation was complete, Sora stood before them as something that was part angel, part dragon, and part living star. She was tall and graceful and magnificent in ways that made Jeho's breath catch in his throat. This was what she had been afraid to show him. This was why she thought he would stop, protecting her. But looking at her true form, Jeho felt no fear at all. Instead, he felt wonder and awe at something more beautiful than anything he had ever imagined. The shadow creatures were fleeing now, their forms dissolving in the face of Sora's radiance. The crystal structure was cracking and crumbling as the stolen life energy was released back to the colonists. "You are incredible," he whispered and meant every word. Sora stood in her transformed state like a living constellation, breathing light into the air around them. Her wings moved slowly, creating patterns of color that danced across the broken buildings of the colony. The shadow creatures had retreated deep into their crystal structure, but Jeho could still see their burning eyes watching from the darkness within. As her power pushed back against the stolen life energy, the crystal began to crack with sounds like breaking glass. The colonists, who had been trapped in suspended animation, started to stir and move. Taemin blinked and shook his head as color returned to his pale skin, and his normal movement came back. Sora began to speak, and her voice now carried harmonies that seemed to come from multiple sources at once. It was like listening to a choir of angels singing in a language that went straight to the heart without needing to be understood by the mind. "You want to know why we hide," she said. The light from her wings grew, softer and warmer as she prepared to tell them a story that spanned thousands of years. "Let me show you what happens when we reveal ourselves to younger races." The air around them shimmered, and suddenly Jeho could see images forming like he was. Watching a movie projected onto the atmosphere itself, the images showed a planet with blue oceans and green continents covered in cities that sparkled like jewels. This was HFY. Sora explained the home world of a species called the Nakari. They were much like humans, curious and brave and eager to explore the galaxy. They had just developed space travel when my people found them. In the vision, Jeho could see beings that looked similar to humans, but with longer limbs and skin that changed color based on their emotions. The Nakari were building their first starships and sending expeditions to nearby planets. They seemed happy and full of hope for their future. My people arrived in our true forms back then. Sora continued, "We did not hide what we were. We thought that being honest was the best way to build trust and friendship. We offered to share our knowledge and help them advance their civilization. The images changed to show magnificent beings of light landing on Koreth 5 in ships that looked like they were made of crystallized starlight. The Yonsayang were even more beautiful than Sora was now, with wings that could span the width of city streets and voices that could heal sadness just by being heard. First, everything went well. Sora said, "The Nakari welcomed us as friends and teachers. We helped them cure diseases that had plagued them for centuries. We showed them how to make their crops grow better and their technology work more efficiently. We shared our art and music and philosophy." For several decades, the partnership between the two species seemed perfect. The Nakari learned quickly, and their civilization flourished under the guidance of their alien friends. Their cities became more beautiful. Their people lived longer, healthier lives, and their understanding of science and art grew by leaps and bounds. But then, problems began to develop. The images showed Nakari leaders meeting in secret chambers, their skin colors showing worry and anger. Some of them began to question why they needed so much help from aliens. Why could they not advance on their own? What would happen if the Yonsang decided to leave, or worse, what if they decided to take over? The younger Nakari, especially, began to resent our presence. Sora explained with sadness in her voice. They felt like children being helped by adults all the time. They wanted to prove they could succeed without us. Some began to think we were deliberately keeping them dependent on us so we could control their civilization. The images showed protests and demonstrations. Groups of Nakari demanded that the aliens leave their world. Others insisted that the Yonsang were plotting to replace them as the dominant species on their own planet. Fear and suspicion spread through their society like a disease. We tried to address their concerns. Sora said, "We offered to teach them everything we knew, then leave them to develop on their own. But by then, it was too late." The fear had taken root in their hearts. They began to see our every helpful action as proof that we thought they were inferior. The situation grew worse when some Nakari scientists tried to study Yeonsang technology in secret. They wanted to understand how the aliens could do such amazing things, and they wanted that power for themselves. But Yeonsang technology was based on life energy manipulation that required thousands of years of training and natural abilities that the Nakari did not possess when their experiments failed. The Nakari decided that the Yeonsang were deliberately withholding the secrets of their power. Some groups began to plot ways to force the aliens to share their knowledge. Others planned to capture Yeonsang individuals and study them like laboratory specimens. We realized we had made a terrible mistake. Sora said, "The images showed Yeonsang leaders discussing what to do about the growing hostility on Koreth 5. We had tried to help, but instead we had created fear and resentment." We decided to leave before the situation got worse. But it was already too late for a peaceful solution. The most extreme groups among the Nakari had developed weapons designed specifically to fight beings of living energy. They attacked Yonsang settlements without warning, trying to capture aliens for their experiments. The war that followed was brief, but devastating. The Yonsang had never fought against people they had tried to help. They held back their full power, hoping to minimize casualties, but the Nakari fought with desperate fury, believing they were fighting for their independence and survival. In the end, the Nakari civilization destroyed itself. The weapons they created to fight the Yonsang were too powerful and unstable. Several of their cities were accidentally vaporized by their own military. The social division between those who wanted to fight the aliens and those who wanted peace led to civil war. When it was over, Koreth 5 was a dead world, Sora said, and tears ran down her scaled cheeks. The Nakari had become extinct, not because we conquered them, but because fear of us had driven them to destroy themselves. We left that system carrying the guilt of what our good intentions had caused. Young Ho, who had been listening in stunned silence, finally spoke. "How many times did this happen?" "Too many times," Sora replied. "Over the millennia, we tried to help 17 different species. Each time we thought we could do better, we thought we could avoid the mistakes of the past. But fear seems to be universal among younger races. Fear of being controlled, fear of being replaced, fear of not being good enough. The images changed to show other worlds, other species, all following similar patterns. Initial gratitude turning to suspicion, turning to conflict, turning to destruction. Some civilizations lasted longer than others, but they all ended the same way with the younger species, either destroying themselves or becoming so consumed with hatred that they had to be stopped. That is why we hide now. Sora said, "That is why I wear the mask and pretend to be human. We learned that helping openly creates more problems than it solves, so we help secretly. We live among you and protect you, but we let you believe your successes are your own." "But what about the shadow creatures?" Jeho asked. "How do they fit into this?" Sora turned toward the cracking crystal structure where the shadow feeders were still lurking. "The Vorthak were the worst case," she said. "They were the most advanced species we tried to help, and they became the most dangerous when they turned against us. Instead of destroying themselves like the others, the Vorthak found a different solution to their jealousy. They decided that if they could not have our power through learning, they would take it by force. They began experimenting on captured Yeon Sayeng, trying to steal our life energy and make it their own. The experiments changed them. Sora continued. They became addicted to life energy and their bodies adapted to process it. The more they consumed, the less they resembled their original forms. Eventually, they became the shadow creatures you see now, beings that exist only to feed on the life force of others. Now they roam the galaxy, looking for worlds with intelligent life. They drain entire populations and store the energy in crystals like this one. They are what the Nakari and all the others could have become if they had chosen the path of stealing power, instead of destroying themselves. The crystal gave a final loud crack and split open completely. The remaining shadow creatures poured out, but they were weaker now without their stored energy to sustain them. Sora's light pushed them back, and they began to dissolve into nothing more than wisps of dark smoke. The colonists all around them were waking up now, sitting up and looking around in confusion. They had no memory of what had happened to them, only a vague sense of having had very long dreams. As they began to help each other stand and check for injuries, none of them seemed to notice the alien being with wings of light standing in their midst. "That is another thing we learned," Sora said as she began to shrink back toward her human disguise. "Most people see what they expect to see. When they wake up, they will remember a rescue team with advanced medical equipment. They will not remember seeing someone like me." As her transformation reversed, Sora became smaller and more human. Looking again, her wings folded back into nothing, and her scales faded until only her face remained different from what it had been before. She picked up her mask from where it had fallen and held it in her hands like a precious artifact. "Now you know the truth," she said to Jae-ho. "My people have been protecting humanity for over 200 years. We live in your cities, work in your hospitals, serve on your spaceships, all to keep you safe from—" Sora stood holding her mask in her hands while the colonists around them slowly recovered from their ordeal. Her face was fully visible now, showing the delicate scales that caught the light and the teeth that were too sharp to be human, but somehow beautiful in their alien perfection. Jae-ho could see the fear in her large eyes as she waited for his reaction to everything she had told him. The truth about her people and their history hung in the air between them, like something heavy and fragile. At any moment, he could destroy the trust she had placed in him. He could report what he had learned to human authorities. He could demand that she leave his ship or reveal the locations of other hidden Yeon Sayeng. He could do exactly what every other species had done when they learned the truth. But instead, Jae-ho stepped closer to her and spoke quietly so the recovering colonists would not hear. "I understand why you were afraid," he said, "but you were wrong about me. I will not stop protecting." Sora searched his face looking for signs of lying or hidden fear. "What if other humans learn the truth? What if your government decides we are a threat? What if they try to hunt us down or capture us for study? Then I will protect you from them." "Too," Jae-ho replied without hesitation. Young-ho had been listening to their conversation, and now he moved closer to join them. His face showed the confusion and amazement that anyone would feel after learning that aliens had been living among humans for centuries. But there was no fear in his expression, only curiosity and wonder. Sora looked at him nervously, waiting to see how the second human would react to her revelation. Young-ho stared at her scaled face for a long moment, then smiled. "That explains why you are such an amazing doctor," he said. "You have been studying medicine for thousands of years instead of just a few decades, like human doctors." Sora blinked in surprise at his casual acceptance. "You are not afraid of me?" "Why would I be afraid?" Young-ho asked. You have saved my life at least 5 times during our missions together. You have never hurt anyone on our crew. You spend your time healing people and protecting them from danger. The fact that you look different under your mask does not change any of that. Taemin had finished recovering from his encounter with the shadow creatures and walked over to see what they were discussing. When he saw Sora's uncovered face, his eyes widened, but like Young-ho, he showed no fear. I knew something was different about you, he said. You could see in the dark better than anyone else, and you never got tired during long battles. I thought maybe you had some kind of genetic enhancement, but this makes more sense. Sora looked around at the 3 humans who now knew her secret. None of them were backing away or reaching for weapons. None of them looked at her with the fear and suspicion that had destroyed so many civilizations in the past. Instead, they seemed genuinely curious about her and grateful for the protection she had been providing. "This is not how it usually happens," she said with wonder in her voice. "Most species react with fear when they learn the truth about us. They start asking questions about how many of us there are and whether we are planning to take over their worlds. Maybe humans are different." Jae-ho suggested, "Maybe we have learned from the mistakes of other species. Maybe we are ready to accept that not all aliens are threats." But even as he said it, Jae-ho knew that not all humans would react the same way he and his crew had. There would be some who would see the Yonseng as threats or opportunities to exploit. There would be governments that would want to study them, and military leaders who would want to use their power as weapons. Sora seemed to be thinking the same thing. "Even if you accept me," she said, "there are billions of other humans who might not be so understanding. If the secret gets out, my people will have to leave human space. We will have to find somewhere else to hide, and humanity will be left defenseless against threats like the shadow feeders. Then we make sure the secret does not get out," Jae-ho said firmly. "At least not until humanity is ready to handle it." "How do we do that?" Young-ho asked. "There are records of this mission. Reports will have to be filed about what happened here. We tell them the truth about the shadow creatures and the crystal," Sora said. "But we do not mention how the creatures were defeated. We say our weapons were eventually effective after we found their weakness. And what about your transformation?" Taemin asked. A lot of colonists saw bright lights and heard strange sounds. Most of them were unconscious or barely aware of what was happening. Sora explained. "And as I said before, people tend to see what they expect to see. They will remember a rescue team with advanced technology, not an alien with wings of light." But this was just one incident. Jae-ho pointed out. "What happens the next time we encounter something that requires your full power? What happens when other crews start noticing that you can do impossible things?" Sora was quiet for a long moment as she considered the problem. Then she looked up at Jae-ho with a new expression on her face, something that looked like hope mixed with determination. "There might be another way," she said. "What if, instead of hiding, we started preparing humanity for the truth gradually?" "What do you mean?" Young-ho asked. Sora began to pace as she worked through her idea. "What if we started with small groups of trusted humans? People like you who have proven they can handle learning about us. We could slowly build a network of humans who know the truth and can help bridge the gap between our species." "That sounds dangerous," Taemin said. "If the wrong people find out, they could cause exactly the kind of panic and fear you are trying to avoid." "Yes, it is dangerous," Sora agreed, "but continuing to hide is also dangerous. The shadow feeders are not the only threat out there. There are other hostile species that see humanity as easy prey because you seem to be alone and unprotected. If humans could learn to accept help from allies, they would be much safer." Jae-ho could see the logic in her plan, but he also understood the enormous risks involved. Centuries of hiding and secrecy could not be undone quickly or easily. One mistake could lead to the same kind of fear and conflict that had destroyed other civilizations. How? Would we start? He asked. Sora looked at each of them in turn. We start with people like you. People who have worked closely with my kind and learned to trust us. People in positions where they might encounter other Yonseng or other alien threats. We tell them the truth and see how they react, and if they react badly. Young-ho asked, then we make sure they understand that revealing the secret would put millions of lives at risk. Sora said both human and Yonseng lives most people will keep. Quiet if they understand the stakes. It was a dangerous plan that could easily go wrong in dozens of different ways, but Jae-ho could also see that it might be the only way to break the cycle of fear and secrecy that had trapped both species in their current situation. I am willing to try, he said, but we need to be very careful about who we approach and how we approach them. Sora nodded. We start small with people we absolutely trust. People who have already shown they can work with differences and accept the unusual. We build slowly and carefully. Taemin looked thoughtful. What about other Yonseng? Do they all agree with this plan, or are some of them going to want to keep hiding? That is the biggest challenge. Sora admitted. Many of my people are terrified of being discovered. They have lived in fear for so long that they cannot imagine any other way. The idea of revealing ourselves even to trusted humans will seem insane to most of them. Then we prove it can work. Jae-ho said this. Start with a few cases and show positive results. When other Yonseng see that some humans can be trusted, they might be willing to consider other possibilities. Young-ho was nodding along with the plan. But what about the immediate situation, he asked. We still have a ship full of colonists who need medical attention and a crystal structure that needs to be properly destroyed. Sora put her mask back on, covering her alien features once again. For now, we handle this the old way, she said. Help the colonists recover and make sure all traces of the shadow feeders are eliminated. But we also start thinking about how to prepare for a future where humans and Yonseng can work together openly as they walked back toward the recovering. Colonists Jae-ho felt like he was carrying the weight of two civilizations on his shoulders. The choices they made in the coming days and weeks could determine whether humanity would remain alone and vulnerable or find its place among the alien species that had been secretly protecting them, but for the first time in her long life, Sora felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Hope that maybe this time would be different. Maybe humans really could be the species that broke the pattern of fear and mistrust. Maybe they could be the ones who finally learned to accept help from alien friends. The choice was before them, and everything depended on making it correctly. 6 months after the incident at New Seoul Colony, Captain Jae-ho stood in the conference room of the exploration vessel, New Dawn, looking at a group of people who represented the future of human and alien relations. Around the table sat 12 carefully chosen humans, each of whom had been approached about the truth of the Yonseng presence among humanity. Dr. Kim Min-seo from the Mars Medical Research Station had reacted with fascination when she learned that her colleague, Dr. So-ra, was an alien who had been secretly advancing human medicine for decades. Engineer Park Hyun-woo from the Jupiter Mining Consortium had laughed with relief when he discovered that the mysterious technical improvements to their equipment had come from his Yonseng supervisor rather than corporate espionage. Commander Lee Da-hai from Earth Defense Force had been the most difficult to convince, until So-ra demonstrated her healing abilities on a soldier who had been paralyzed for years. Within minutes, the man was walking again, and Da-hai became one of their strongest supporters. Each person in the room had gone through the same process of shock, disbelief, acceptance, and finally enthusiasm as they realized what the Yonseng partnership could mean for humanity. The careful selection process had worked perfectly. None of them had reacted with fear or hostility. All of them understood the importance of keeping the secret until humanity was ready for the full truth. So-Ra sat at the head of the table, without her mask for the first time in front of a group of humans. Her scaled face caught the light from the conference room windows, and her expression showed a confidence that had been growing over the past months. As more humans learned to accept her true appearance, she had begun to believe that her people's long exile might finally be coming to an end. "We have reached a turning point," she said to the assembled group. "The shadow feeder attacks are increasing, and there are reports of other hostile species moving into human space systems. My people cannot continue to protect humanity from the shadows much longer. We need to start working together." Openly, Dr. Kim leaned forward with interest. "How many other threats are we talking about, according to our intelligence networks?" So-Ra replied, "There are at least 6 different hostile species that consider human space to be easy territory for expansion. They have been held back by our hidden presence, but they are becoming bolder. Some of them suspect that humans have alien protectors and they are actively hunting for us." Engineer Park looked worried. "What happens if they find your people? Then we will have to retreat to avoid exposing ourselves." So-Ra said, "And humanity will face these threats alone. Your current military technology is advanced for a young species, but it is not sufficient to handle enemies who have been traveling space for thousands of years." Commander Lee had been studying tactical reports, and her expression was grim. "Our deep space sensors have detected unusual ship movements near the Proxima Centauri system," she said. "Large vessels using technology we do not recognize. If they are hostile, we need to know about it." So-Ra nodded. "That is exactly the kind of threat I am talking about. The ships you detected belong to a species called the Keth Empire. They specialize in conquering younger civilizations and enslaving the populations for labor. Their technology is specifically designed to overwhelm species that have not yet developed energy shielding or faster-than-light weapons." Jeho had been listening to the discussion while thinking about the bigger picture. "How do we move from this small group to revealing the truth to all of humanity?" he asked. "It seems impossible to keep this secret much longer, but it also seems dangerous to reveal it too quickly." So-Ra smiled, and her sharp teeth no longer seemed frightening to the humans who had learned to know her. "We have been developing a plan with input from both humans and Yonseng," she said. "We call it the Gradual Contact Protocol." She activated a holographic display that showed a timeline stretching over several years. The plan was detailed and carefully thought out, with specific steps for revealing the truth to different groups of humans at different times. Phase 1 involves expanding our trusted human network to include key leaders in government, military, science, and industry. So-Ra explained, "We approach people who are already in positions where they might encounter evidence of alien activity and prepare them for the truth phase. 2 introduces the concept of alien allies to the general population through carefully planned media releases and scientific announcements. We start with evidence of ancient alien artifacts and gradually reveal that some aliens are still present and helping humanity. Phase 3 involves formal diplomatic contact where selected Yonseng reveal themselves openly to human leaders and begin negotiating treaties of alliance and cooperation." Dr. Kim studied the timeline with professional interest. "How long do you estimate this will take?" "If everything goes perfectly, about 3 years. So-Ra said, "But we are prepared for it to take longer if necessary. The important thing is that each phase must be completed successfully before moving to the next one. If we rush the process or skip steps, we could trigger exactly the kind of fear and panic that destroyed other civilizations." Engineer Park raised a practical concern. "What about other alien species? Will they just wait patiently while we go through this gradual process?" "That is the biggest risk," So-Ra admitted. "Some hostile species are already probing human defenses and testing our responses. If they attack in force before we complete the protocol, we will have to reveal ourselves immediately regardless of the consequences." Commander Lee looked determined. Then we need to be prepared for that possibility. Our military forces should be briefed on potential alien threats even if we do not tell them about alien allies. Yet Jae-ho agreed. We also need to identify key locations where Yeon-saeng presence would be most valuable if we have to drop the pretense. Suddenly, medical centers, research facilities, military command posts. Sora nodded. We have been working on contingency plans for rapid revelation, but they are much more dangerous than gradual contact. If we are forced to reveal ourselves suddenly, many humans will react with fear before they have time to understand our intentions. Young-ho, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, finally spoke. What about the Yeon-saeng themselves? Are they all willing to go along with this plan? Sora's expression became more serious. That is still being debated, she said. Many of my people are terrified of revealing themselves after centuries of hiding. They remember the wars and the civilizations that destroyed themselves rather than accept our help. Some of them want to continue hiding indefinitely, but the younger generation of Yeon-saeng is more willing to take risks, she continued. They have grown up among humans, and they believe your species might be different from the others. They are tired of living in secret and want to build genuine friendships instead of hiding behind disguises. Taemin had been thinking about the practical aspects of the plan. What happens to Yeon-saeng who do not want to reveal themselves? He asked Will. They be forced to participate. No, Sora said firmly. One of the core principles of the protocol is that participation must be voluntary. Any Yeon-saeng who wants to continue hiding will be supported in maintaining their secret identities. We estimate that about half of our population will choose to remain hidden, even after official contact is established. Dr. Kim looked thoughtful. That might actually be better, she said. Having some Yeon-saeng remain secret could provide security if something goes wrong with the open relationship. Exactly, Sora agreed. It also means that humans who are not comfortable with alien contact can continue to receive help without knowing where it comes from. We want to build bridges, not force anyone into relationships they are not ready for. The meeting continued for several more hours as they worked through the details of implementing the gradual contact protocol. Each phase had multiple backup plans and safety measures designed to prevent the kind of catastrophic misunderstandings that had led to war in the past. As the group prepared to leave, Jae-ho remained behind to speak privately with Sora. She was gathering her notes and preparing to put her mask back on for the journey back to her quarters. You do not need to wear that anymore, he said, gesturing to the mask in her hands. At least not when you are with people who know the truth. Sora looked at the mask that had been part of her identity for so many years. I know, she said, but it has become a habit. Sometimes I feel safer behind it even when I do not need to hide. Jae-ho understood. The mask represented more than just a disguise. It was a symbol of the fear and isolation that her people had endured for centuries. Giving it up completely would take time and courage. But when you are ready, he said, you will have a whole crew of humans who will protect you whether you are wearing it or not. Sora smiled the real smile that showed her sharp teeth and alien beauty. That is what I never expected, she said. When I first whispered that you would stop protecting me if you knew what I was, I truly believed it. I thought humans would react like every other species we had tried to help. Instead, you have shown me that some fears are meant to be overcome. Sora continued, you have proven that trust can be stronger than fear, and that friendship can bridge any difference even between species that evolved on different worlds as they left the conference room together. Jae-ho reflected on how much had changed since that first question about the mask 6 months ago. Sora had been a mysterious crew member hiding her true nature behind white fabric. Today, she was a bridge between